The number that struck out at Joe and me was the monthly active users at 320 million, which was a miss. Is that the one that is driving the stock lower in after-hours trade?
Could be. I think that guidance for the fourth quarter probably is even more important than the units, the number of users. But yeah, so you look at that number, you look at that 320 million, and you see sort of how that compares to what they've reported in the past, and you can see that growth rate of users just slowing. They're having a hard time adding users, just 4 million in the quarter worldwide. And if you look at the user growth rate, I think you can really see this. Now, I use a sequential growth rate. I think that's appropriate for a business like Twitter, where the users themselves year over year doesn't really tell you the story. So you can see that at 1.3% is the slowest user growth Twitter has ever seen in all of the reported numbers going back before the IPO. This is the slowest user growth I've ever seen on a sequential basis. And that's bad news when it comes to sort of imagining a great big audience like, say, Facebook or someone else might have.
But, Corey, is the Twitter user number really just old news in the sense that, look, all this is pre-Jack coming back, basically, and so we know he's going to try to change the strategy, so why not ignore all this?
I think I do think it's old. I mean, surely they would like to have a lot more users. And at one time, user growth and reaccelerating user growth was part of the story there. But I think that, you know, I really think what we're going to hear from Twitter when the conference call happens, and indeed when they publish the rest of the results, their investor relations page is actually really good. There's a lot more data, but they haven't updated it yet. But what we're going to start to hear from Twitter, I think, is a lot more discussion about monetization of users. And you can see this in today's results. The value per Twitter user, that is the ad revenue or total revenue from every Twitter user, is really accelerating. So every Twitter user is now worth $1.78 in the most recent quarter. And that's the greatest value Twitter has ever realized from its user base. So while the user base may not be growing a lot, they're getting a lot more money for those users. And I think you're going to hear Twitter try to shift the conversation away from the actual users on the site to the growing value of the Twitter users and all of the places that people are seeing tweets. And their argument's going to go something like this. Who is it that you want to see on Twitter who's not already there? You really want your grandma tweeting at you? And so I think that's going to be their story going forward, and I think they're going to prove it through the monetization, and we're seeing those results actually look not so bad.
Corey, there's a temptation to compare Twitter to, say, Instagram. Do companies, advertisers think of the services as either or?
You know, I think that when we talk to advertisers, what we're hearing is that they're really thinking about the buckets of traditional media. Maybe we put broadcast in a separate category of traditional media. There's online, principally around display and search, and then there's social. And social is still a slugfest between, you know, the Facebook, the granddaddy of them all, and Instagram and Twitter, and who knows what's going to be next beyond that. But I think that the world of social media, where advertising goes, is going to go towards efficacy, and that's what Twitter's going to try to use their data to prove. And you can see again in those numbers, I think the numbers of value per user actually look pretty good for Twitter and bode well for the future success of this company. Maybe not for this valuation, but at least a successful business.